Let's freaking go! TREY'DEZ Green has committed to LSU. I'm going to need you in the comment section. Do you feel this is the number one player in the state of Louisiana? And right now, on pretty much every recruiting service, he is ranked number 2 in the boot. And I absolutely love this jump ball catch right here. As you can see, the game is close. And look at him catch this football. I know the DB is not the absolute biggest guy in the world right here, but I just love seeing a player that high points the football, even when you don't have to. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful stuff right there. So, this is a recruit out of the state of Louisiana that we have honestly never quite seen before. He is one of these freak of nature tight ends who is probably more so known for another sport he plays. That's coming up in just a second. But out of East Feliciana, this guy is absolutely someone that everybody wants because everybody's looking for that next Darnell Washington, the tight end that can be matchup nightmares for opposing teams, and he obviously fits that bill. Now, there is one comparison that is very easy to make for TREY'DEZ Green, and that is someone that LSU actually brought in this last cycle by the name of Kamarion Pimpton, who also is a 6'6"-ish big-time tight end prospect who is an absolute nightmare in the red zone. Also, like Kamarion Pimpton, TREY'DEZ Green is a guy who mostly in his high school career lined up outside instead of as an inline tight end. So when he comes in, obviously physically he would be ready to play in the SEC. The big question would be, how will he translate to being an inline blocker? That's if LSU even wants him to be that for them next year. So this is such a fascinating player, as you can tell by the overall excitement that I'm giving you in this video. This is really cool that in back-to-back years you get one of these red zone jump ball, get the football in his hands kind of people. Something else as we project towards the future of LSU football, you have seen LSU struggle in the red zone in recent years, and when you have someone this big, especially if he is able to give you something as a blocker, you better be very happy that LSU was able to get this done. So, I'm not going to lie, every single school was after him because these types of athletes just don't come out of nowhere. So, TREY'DEZ Green is obviously someone that could be a massive, and I mean massive, game changer for LSU. Now, what is very fascinating about his playmaking ability is this is a guy who is probably more well-known prior to his football career to being a basketball player. And as of right now, he is still getting some major love as a basketball player. Now, his 247 recruiting profile only has him as a top 100 football player, but he is not rated as a basketball player. But doing some research here, all the way up until just a few days ago, he has been named as a top performer at quite a few AU basketball games. And normally when you see just a 6'7" high school basketball player that just dominates people, it's normally just someone who is just so much more athletic than everybody on the field. But I'm going to be honest with you, TREY'DEZ Green's basketball game is very nuanced. I watched a lot of highlights. He is a left-handed player, sizing people up in the post and just taking fadeaway jumpers. It's not just I'm getting the basketball and I'm just dunking all over you. So I am really fascinated by this guy's overall game. I've listened to a few interviews, and he just seems to be overall just an interesting person, as in the background you see him just running people over. And by the way, this is one of those scenarios where he hadn't been playing football for too long. He said in an interview with WFB that he had not been focusing on football that much as a sophomore, and the offers had already started rolling in because of his athleticism. The one thing you did want to see, though, from his sophomore to junior season is an obvious increase in production, and you see it. I mean, this is just some really good stuff right here by TREY'DEZ Green. Good football IQ. You have this smaller guy dominated. The quarterback is past you. No need to, commit any kind of cheap penalty, even though the corner was begging for one. Very cerebral player, and I am really looking forward to him being a part of this recruiting class. Now, before we get in, I'm going to try and get some basketball highlights up here ready for you. Before we actually chat about that, as we always do after a commitment, let's take a look at the 2024 class as a whole. Now, they were already a top 5 national class, and they look like they're going to be there when it's all said and done, because there are some other recruits that are starting to trend towards LSU. Juwan Johnson out of LCA, who was committed to Colorado. He is part of the great exodus of decommitments and people hitting the portal up there in primetime country, and it looks as if he is more than likely going to end up picking LSU, as will most of the elite top 10 guys as of right now in the class of 2024. Now, that can all change. Obviously, Dominic McKinley is the only player that is ranked higher than TREY'DEZ Green. He's still out there. A lot of people in LSU circles in the recruiting world feels pretty good that LSU is going to bring him in as well. So LSU has done some really good stuff, recruiting some really good players out of state. But obviously, as many of you know, it is very important for a lot of you just listening to our live streams to recruit the boot first. And LSU is certainly doing that. And look, there's nothing to not be excited about for the class of 2024. So LSU top 5 national recruiting class. Obviously, a lot to be pumped up about here with TREY'DEZ Green, and a lot to be pumped up about with Brian Kelly's recruiting. Now, once again, it's not just Brian Kelly. A lot of this here is Joe Sloan, the quarterback coach, and, of course, the tight ends coach and OC, Mike Denbrock. So all the way down to Sherman Wilson and everybody in that recruiting staff, they all work together to make a board and get players on it and off it. And obviously, TREY'DEZ Green was a guy that they put a high priority on in this cycle. So let's see what he could do. Let's see what he could do once he gets to Baton Rouge. So should be a really fun player. And because they've done a good job recruiting the tight end and wide receiver position, they may not need him to play right away, and he will be allowed to develop as a player. So all around, absolutely great freaking day to be a fan of LSU. Now, one final thing that I think is going to be very interesting. There is some serious upside to eventually getting this guy being able to become a blocker. I think that would be a huge matchup nightmare for LSU if they could get him as an inline blocker, because that's what really made Darnell Washington so valuable for Georgia, was that he could move people in the running game. And as any former Division I player will tell you, whether you're a receiver, a tight end, or offensive lineman, for you to become a blocker, it's just going to come down to your willingness to become a blocker. And I read a little excerpt from On 3 about TREY'DEZ Green, and he said that he wants to become an absolute great football player, that he is working every day on his route running and all of that. Obviously, blocking is a difficult task to learn, but I think it will be something he can develop. Bah! Looking at you. Yes, you, right now. So, I got some TREY'DEZ Green basketball highlights to show you, and I want to ask you a question. Does recruiting the elite 4 stars and 5 stars actually matter at LSU? Now, I want you to take a look at this TREY'DEZ Green shot right here. Look at that. The lefty sizing him up. I want to give away this Craig Buster Davis card. All you got to do is sign up for Patreon, and guess what? We just did a deep dive. Does LSU actually have a better history getting 3 stars into the NFL draft than 4 and 5 stars? Who take a deep dive and look at data from Ohio State, Alabama, all the way down to Baylor. And with that study, you have a chance. The next person that signs up for Patreon, you're joining a pretty fun Discord and deep dive community. You're getting that Craig. Come on, no, you don't call him Craig. You're getting this Buster Davis LSU rookie card autograph. There you go. So, as you can see in the background, TREY'DEZ Green does have basketball aspirations. It does seem, though, that college evaluators view him better as a football player, but I do think he would play basketball also at LSU. And if he can shoot from the outside and play defense, you can play at any level. And he does obviously have some finishing ability at the rim. So it looks like he is going to be a 2-sport athlete, and we are really looking forward to that. Now, what I want you to do in the comment section, let me know if you actually do believe he is the number 1 football recruit in the state of Louisiana, and let me know who you think the biggest prospect still on the board is for LSU, okay? Keep the comment section civil as always, and we'll see you also in the Patreon, okay? It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! If you want to see my Deshaun McBride recruiting breakdown, boom! And if you want to see my spring game film studies, that's also floating in your face. And tonight, we're doing Cajun Creole pasta, baby. Let's go!